Just checking, is English on? Sore thumb.
Okay, I hope you all had a good dinner again. Staat nog niet aan? Now it's on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm quickly going to give the floor to Wick. The topic we'll be dealing with this evening is not the easiest, I would say. If at any point it becomes emotional or hard or anything else, don't feel obliged to stay seated. Of course, you're welcome to stay seated. But if it's too much, don't hesitate to leave. Yeah?
Nou, goedenavond.
Good evening, everyone. Many of you know me, not all of them. I'm Rick. From 2009, I've been here. I had a daughter with Jacobson, but in 2019 she died, unfortunately. But I still wanted to do something for this organization. Let's make it difficult for myself. I thought, let's talk about something which people don't know. It's about living loss. What happens when you have an impaired child? Your world seems to crumble. And I'll talk about the steps that you have to take, which are different from when you have a kid with a disability. In a family with a child with a disability, the term living loss means that parents, the translation is on the screen. These are a few talking points for me. Thoughts, associations with living loss. Let's name a few. Tension, fatigue, relational problem in the private sphere. You have different thoughts. Sleep loss. Your child has a disability which hurts because you expected a normal life. You lose friends because you only have time for your own family. You're confused. Looking at myself, for a long time I lived in isolation because I was only occupied with my kids. You learn, you get to know other people, but you're mostly involved with your own family. Why is living loss? Why is it a living loss and not a one-time grief? Because you have a cyclical mechanism and emotional dynamics. In the end, I'll close off with questions. A cyclical mechanism manifests itself in concrete life moments such as starting primary school. Maybe your child won't go to primary school or for children or to a school for children with a disability. That's all things you have to think about. Am I doing okay or a bit too quickly? What do you do concerning secondary or special education? All those steps are difficult because around you, you see parents who go to a regular primary school, but you have to pick another school, a different school. But it's also the step to adolescence, the next phase, sexuality, autonomy, self-determination about what you want to do. Those choices, we have to make them for the child. And then is the next step. There's the next step. We talked about that before dinner. Paula was very involved. It's the step to moving out or living. If your kid is 18 and becomes a student, they move out. And if you have a child with a limitation, with an impairment, they have to live in a residential group. Now, every step is difficult. And you're confronted with it each time. And when you die, think about that. Who will care for your child? You have to make arrangements for that. And every change is new. Every time you have to think, what will be the next step and how will I approach it? Children like we are, I mean, you know what they will do. And let's not forget the emotional dynamics. Both parents are confronted with it. You have a deeper link to your child because you worry more. And the grief about the impairment stays. It's thinking of myself. You have to go to hospital, and you think, well, now we're done. No, you have to go back for the same problem to the hospital. It constantly continues, and you feel guilty. Is it my fault? What is it? And every time you go to the hospital or a school thinking that won't work, it's still difficult, always. There is a loyalty conflict. I love my child, but so I can't miss it, but that can be difficult. Boss describes it as ambiguity intolerance, the inability to bear loss and presence at the same time. On the one hand, your child has an impairment. On the other hand, it's still there. And you're confronted with that every day. What are the characteristics of living loss in the family? A loss of expectations. You expect your child to be healthy and to go to school and will come home with a boyfriend. And that keeps coming back in every phase. Every time you're confronted with it and you have mixed feelings. On the one hand, you're happy that the child is progressing, that she is showing progression, but at the same time, there is a loss because if you see people around you, you see that her progression is slower or even lacking. There is a loss of expectations. The future is different. You expect your child to be independent and to marry and to be grandparents. Everything changes. The loss of reciprocity in the parent-child relation. You always have to be there for the child, even if it's older. And there may be moments that you need care. your child cannot care for you. And all these phases are constantly repeated with a new development stage, like starting school, puberty, adulthood. Every time it comes back. There's no clear beginning or end. Societal rituals are different. You go to a special school, but you can't get a diploma, not in every school. And the mourning keeps recurring. Parents often experience love and pride and sorrow and disappointment. You hope your child will be living independently, but you know that it can't, at least not as you hoped it would. And you experience guilt. I cannot feel what I feel. That's difficult. At least for me, it was difficult. Every time you have to take different steps and think differently. And the tension between acceptation and hope stays. You accept the situation, but you hope that it will change or that things happen earlier. It affects the family with parents. The parent relationship is affected because each reacts differently. Brothers and sisters react differently. Parents experience increased stress and emotional exhaustion because you're constantly involved. And in one way or another, you manage, you keep going, you don't know better, and you keep succeeding in keeping it up. But there is an increased risk of depressive thoughts. And you have an identity change. You change from parent to caregiver. But when your child turns 12, usually you can leave it alone, but I could never do that. I don't know any of you who still has difficulty to leave the kid at home alone. It stays. It's very difficult, but they can't be alone. And every time you keep worrying about your child, and that's normal, but for us it stays. And how do you deal with it as partners? Like was said this morning, there are more divorces because everyone mourns differently when you have a child with an impairment. Let's go into my situation. I'm not much of a talker. My wife kept talking and I just kept mute. So the chances are that you grow apart. This care burden grows. If you're in hospital and you have other kids, you have to stay home for them as well. The pressure increases and can be huge. And there is a reduced space for reciprocity because you're so involved in the care. I solved it with Karen by trying to go away for a weekend together twice a year. And you need a network to help you. If you have several kids, you have to find someone to care for that kid during such weekend. It is very important to do that. You cannot continue. And it's difficult to talk about it. One thinks like this and the other thinks like that. You both have different thoughts about the situation. and sometimes you don't even talk anymore. My advice to you is keep talking, talk about your emotions, or else it won't work. And then there's the siblings. There are a few in this plenum. They feel loss as well. My brother or sister is different, but parents often do not notice it because they're so involved with their one child. And then there's parentification. You take over the care. Brothers and sisters, siblings take over care. And there are loyalty conflicts. Am I a sibling? But I also have to care for my brother or sister. But I want to be a sibling to them as well. So there's this conflict. What is the specific loss? Development loss. A child develops differently from how you hoped it would. Some children cannot make contact with you. You lose that. You hope for a hug, but it won't always be spontaneous. And the family life is very different. Holidays are difficult. Looking at myself, we wanted to go on holiday and we needed a wheelchair and buy a bag full of medication. Looking back at it, we did it. We took the wheelchair up the mountain, but we also had to go down. So you take your child on your neck, and the other kids took the wheelchair. So you keep doing it. Developmental loss. The milestones are different. Children start speaking later or won't go working. Living independently can be a problem. And they remain dependent on care. The loss is relational. It affects the parent-child dynamic. Loss of reciprocity. In the literature, this is explicitly referred to as, and the language is on the screen. There is a late role reversal. When you grow old, you hope your child will care for you, but that would be very difficult. Your child will never be able to care for you. Your planning of the future will change. This distinguishes living loss from regular parental disappointment. The loss of the expected family life. You want to go on normal holidays with 3 kids without worries about, do I have all the medication? Do I have all the nutrition? You always have to care. And there's the social isolation because you're constantly, everything is about your child. Many people don't understand that. I've lost friends due to that. I got new friends because of it, but I've also lost friends. But in one way or another, the family is very flexible. It adapts. But the loss does not disappear. But especially, remain proud of yourself. Let me look. Every family is unique and experiences the living loss in a dynamic way, on their own terms and at their own time. This is allowed, acknowledge it with yourself and your family. I hope this presentation has given you some insight and that guilt is part of the process. But know that you are doing it well. If there's questions, there's now time for that. I think we all need a moment. Maybe first an applause for Rick. Thank you very much. I was doubting about doing it in English, but for me, Dutch was better.
About every point of what you developed just right now. My question is, how do you find the strengths? Because I have a baby with just one, so I feel like it's kind of like the honeymoon because it's a baby, and a baby doesn't know anything. And how do you find the strengths to stay positive when you noticed the delays, when you realize that the milestones are not going to be reached by your child or later? How?
Ja, dat is een moeilijk.
Difficult question. You just go on. Every step they can make, you're happy about that. But it takes a lot of energy, that strength. I'm happy I had people around me who could help me. So sometimes I had some time to pick up some energy because you need that. Looking at myself, our daughter died 6 years ago. And for me, there is a difference from when she was born until 16. It was like a speeding train, and then the train stops and it becomes a local train. But we kept on going. Hospital visits, I worked, and my wife could get time to care for her, and we had 3 other kids. So from work, I went to the hospital so my wife could go home, and I stayed at the hospitals and slept there, and then went to work again. And now I think, how were we able to do all of that? But we did it. We were able to arrange it.
Nederlands?
Rick, if you don't want to answer, please tell me, but how do you feel now? With you? Yeah, I'm doing very well. It took a lot out of me. I was in therapy for 1.5 to 2 years. I've been able to deal with the problems, but not in the right way, but it helped me at the time, and now I'm doing well. I'm more self-assured, more relaxed. I have more time for myself. At first I felt guilty about that. But after some time, you just go on with life. But what I want to tell everyone is listen to each other, hold each other, you need each other. I experienced that myself. We were at the dinner table together. What are we doing now? Because if you don't talk, you can't find a solution. That's what I want to give everyone. Keep on talking, hold each other. And if you have the ability, use your network to find rest, to relax. You need that.
It seems like there are further questions. There's plenty of room after, well, basically now, to talk further amongst each others. Get a beer or a coffee. We noticed a lot of the regular families yesterday outside the plenum, but you are all invited. You'll not be alone. We can talk about this topic, and we can talk about anything else if that's what you feel like. But please join us, and let's give one more hand to Rick.